In your face, they say. This week's Raw is called In Your Face. The problem with being in your face is that you see everything a lot clearer. And maybe you see things that you shouldn't see. And maybe you see things that should be. Confused? You will be. This is Monday Night Raw. In your face, graded. At the commentation station tonight, no Tom Phillips. We have Michael Cole once again. And no Samoa Joe this week either. We have Dolph Ziggler for a bit and then MVP for a bit with varying results. Drew McIntyre is out to start. I say to start. It's about 8 minutes in before we get anything from the Thunderdome. Just a lot of videos and stuff. Drew says that Randy broke his jaw, but he's back. Drew says he was told to forfeit the WWE Championship and take some time off, but he said no, which I didn't realise you could do. And the amount of times in wrestling history where a champion has been forced to relinquish their title, didn't realise you had the option. Drew, you got a broken jaw. You should go home. Nah, be right. All right, fine. Anyway, this leads to Drew McIntyre throwing down the challenge to Randy Orton since both have sent the other home in an effing ambulance. They're going to have an ambulance match at Clash of Champions. Randy has... You know how Randy last week did that Photoshop thing? Drew does something similar here, which was a bit naff, where he had victims of the Claymore on the screen. We did get the origin story of the Claymore during this bit, though, where Drew says that he was running to do a big boot, but he had really tight pants on, and he was going to have a wardrobe malfunction if he did a big boot. So he ended up doing like a low drop kick, which turned into the Claymore. I enjoyed that bit. Anyway, Adam Pearce comes out to interrupt all this and says that Randy Orton may or may not make it to Clash of Champions. So therefore, the stakes are upped for Drew's match against Keith Lee later on tonight. If Keith beats Drew, he becomes the alternate for Clash of Champions. This brings out Keith Lee, and they do that wrestling handshake thing where they shake hands and then don't let go of the grip for a little while. We sneak a little finger to tickle the other guy's palm. I reckon that goes on as well. Giving our opening chat here a B. Thought Drew was really good here at points. I like the story of the Claymore. The Photoshop stuff just doesn't fit with either Drew or Randy. It doesn't fit at all. But this bit was fine as an open. First match of the night. A lot of hype going into this one. The Raw Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits, take on the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro. We had the Street Profits interfere on SmackDown, which has left Cesaro and Nakamura livid going into this. And Cesaro gets that tension out with a big European uppercut the moment the match starts. Profits rally. We see Ford hit a dive outside the ring, only to get caught by Cesaro and Shinsuke and dropped onto the barricade. That looked ugly. Profits start to fight back. We see a big frog splash onto Shinsuke Nakamura, but the ref is distracted by Angelo Dawkins and Cesaro. Doesn't get to the count in time, so Shinsuke manages to kick out. We see the SmackDown champs fight back into this one. Cesaro hitting a big swing. I feel like it's been a while since we've had a big swing on Monday nights. The end of this comes with Cesaro going for a superplex on Montez Ford. As he's got Ford up, Angelo tags himself in. So when Cesaro hits the ground, there's Dawkins off the top with a frog splash of his own for the 1, 2, 3. This match is done in about 10 minutes. Clean win over the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. I'm giving this a B-. This really fell short of what we were hoping to see. What we got was good, but I feel like you could have given these guys more time and they would have given you the world. This just felt like a bit of a rush job for what we could have had. Very underwhelming. We get a video hyping up Mickie James. She's got a Raw Women's Championship match later on tonight. I like Mickie James being set up as the veteran of the women's locker room. This is a really cool place for her to sit. We then go backstage where Angel Garza is flirting with Lana. This brings over Andrade and Zelina Vega. Start bickering once again, and Vega has just had enough and she storms off. off. As soon as she's gone, Andrade and Garza just start brawling. Because the tag team division is too thin as it is on Monday nights. Let's take another tag team away, shall we? Cedric Alexander, representing the Hurt Business, takes on Ricochet now. Cedric cuts a promo before the match, chastising the fans, saying that he's sick of getting hurt. So therefore, he joined the winning side, essentially. Ricochet and Apollo Crews come out. They have a bit of verbal back and forth. This leads to the match starting with a scrappy brawl, basically, between these two. Falls outside of the ring, where we see the Hurt Business getting involved. Here comes Erik from the Viking Raiders to even the odds. He and Bobby Lashley fight to the backstage area, leaving Cedric and Ricochet to go mano a mano. Cedric's style has changed now. He's a heel. Like, he isn't as high-flying as he was. They've adapted this now, so he's slow. He's using cheap shots and stomps and fish hooking Ricochet at one point. Ricochet manages to fight back through some of these cheaper tactics of Cedric Alexander and some of the shenanigans of the Hurt Business. He goes for a shooting star press off the top. Cedric rolls out of the way, and Ricochet ends up eating a Michinoku driver and a lumbar check. And Ricochet sells his lumbar check like a champ. Boom into the knees, and Ricochet sort of does like a somersault in midair before landing on the ground. Cedric picking up the 1, 2, 3. You can see this was an emotional win for Cedric. Like, it's now him back on the winning ways as part of the Hurt Business. This worked really well. Giving this a B-. I feel like it was a good enough match. Wasn't amazing. Cedric's stuff sort of dragged a little bit, but I think that's the point now. He's a heel. We'll find a happy medium with this. The celebrations are cut off by Retribution. They promise to gut our reality and use other long words and descriptive sentences. We recognise some of these guys now. There's Dominik Dijakovic, there's Dio Madden at the back, there's Mercedes Martinez, there's Mia Yim, there's Shane Thorne. Nice gang of people. And then a load of others join them, so there's clearly about 3 billion members in Retribution. Next up, the Raw Women's Championship is on the line. It is Mickie James versus Asuka. This is a long grapply affair to start off with. And, this kind of falls off the rails, in my opinion, at least. Sort of, we see lots of moments where Asuka and Mickie don't seem to be on the same page. Like, they'll start some sequences, one will stop early, or one will go to move one way. It'll just look quite awkward. There's a couple of occasions where they stop, like they have like a headlock or a rest hold, and you can see them chatting away, planning the next bit. And then they'll do the next bit and it'll fall apart. They start to get it all together when we see Asuka go for a hip attack, landing in the ropes, missing Mickie. She gets caught in the ropes, then eats a Mick kick that sends her outside of the ring. So from after the break, this match started to sort of find its feet a little bit again. Dolph Ziggler is wildly in the corner of Mickie James throughout all of this. Like, he's going wild for Mickie throughout this match. Then we see Mickie get some good stuff in. That Hurricane Rana from out of the corner. She hits the top rope press. Some big kicks from both sides. Asuka is wailing on Mickie at one point with a series of kicks, but that veteran instinct of Mickie James turns it into a half crab at one point. And then we come to the finish, where they're going through set pieces, and again it just becomes quite awkward between them again. Like there's like a disconnect. Like one's on a slightly faster broadband router than the other. Like, one's just a bit behind. We see them go back and forth, and Asuka's trying to get in the Asuka lock. Mickey's trying to roll out of it, and the referee gets in amongst it all, and suddenly the referee calls the match off. They break the hold. Mickie looks a bit confused. The referee says that Mickie can't continue and awards the match to Asuka. And Asuka looks a bit perplexed by this as well. Mickie rolls out of the ring, and then Zelina Vega comes down to the ringside area. She is sick of ingrates like Angel Garza and Andrade, and ingrates like Mickie James. She says that she's been reckless with the Raw Women's Championship, and basically she's coming for the title. Asuka starts screaming back in the face of Vega, and Vega responds with a slap to the face of Asuka, and then she heads off, leaving Asuka stood in the centre of the ring holding up her Raw Women's Championship. Oh, right. I'm giving this a C-. This was really disappointing. Like, these guys, I don't know, I think they just had an off night. I think it was just an off night. It just felt like a lot of the stuff, the set pieces they tried to do at the beginning and at the end, just didn't quite flow. You know, a lot of people will say, oh, it was the botched finish that ruined this match. Well, to be honest, the match wasn't really clicking before we even got to the botched finish. There was one moment in this match that looked really stunning, and it was that hip attack that got missed and then a mitt kick that landed. It was so good that they replayed it like just before the end sequence, because they've gone, that was the one bit in the match that looked really good. Let's play that again. I love Mickie James. Love the bones off Mickie James. I love the bones off of Asuka. I love them both. This was an off night. MVP is joining the commentation station from here. We've seen some back and forth with MVP and the Hurt Business and Adam Pearce. They've promised that they're going to help sort out a retribution. If anything kicks off again, the Hurt Business are going to be there. What lovely lads they are. And MVP is ringside for Bobby Lashley's non-title match against Erik from the Viking Raiders. Erik starts strong, rushing the corner for Bobby, but Bobby misses. Bobby manages to move out of the way, and he starts to work over Erik. We get a short flurry from Erik, but this is Bobby's night. He hits a Dominator, locks in the Hurt Lock, and gets a submission win over Erik. I'm going to give this one a C. It was fine. It was there. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was there. Puts Bobby over as a big boy, I guess. I'm also concerned with Erik. We're hearing today that Ivar could be out of action for up to a year on Monday Night Raw, and I'm nervous for what will become of Erik in the absence of Ivar. He's been the butt of the jokes for so long. Like, what do you do with Erik here? How do you keep Erik's momentum going? I guess we're going to find out together, aren't we? We hear from Kevin Owens, who's planning to do bad things to Aleister Black in the Thunderdome tonight. Weird to go from that earthy fight on Raw Underground to a sports entertainment-y style fight on Raw. This was going to be an issue we were going to come up against at some point, so I guess we're coming up against it tonight, aren't we? We then see Braun Strowman turning up at the door of Raw Underground. He wants a fight tonight. Hey, I tell you what, seeing Braun Strowman turn up makes you realise just how tall that bouncer on the door of Raw Underground is. Like, he dwarfs Braun Strowman. He's massive. R-Truth cuts a promo on a Kit Kat. Liv Morgan gets involved. Raw is sponsored by Kit Kat. I think that was funnier in the head of the writer as opposed to in execution, maybe. Got no issue with selling stuff on Raw, though. Got no issue with people making money. By the way, buy a t-shirt. There you go, cultaholicsshop.com. Time for the steel cage match between Seth Rollins and Dominik Mysterio. Before the match, we see Seth Rollins chatting to Murphy backstage, and he demands that Murphy stay there and not get in the way and make any mistakes. Seth Rollins slapping the taste out of Murphy's mouth before leaving here. I love the relationship between these two at this point. The match starts with Dom looking great in there again. Looks like he's going to get a quick, easy win, but then here's Murphy appearing, sliding a kendo stick into Seth Rollins. He then batters Dom with the kendo stick. A bit later in the match, Ray returns the favour, slides a kendo stick into his boy Dominic, who then wails on Seth himself. We see Dominic make an attempt to leave the steel cage. Rey Mysterio at the door, ushering his son on. And then here comes Murphy. He wipes out Rey Mysterio, but in beating at Rey Mysterio, he's turned his back on the cage. Doesn't see Seth Rollins now attempting to leave the cage. He slams the door on Seth Rollins' face. Murphy is just wild with upset about this. He runs up the cage like a rat up a drain pipe to try and stop Dom from getting out. He ends up getting knocked to the floor, and in all this, Seth has managed to recover. He lands a superplex Falcon Arrow combo onto Dominic. It looked beautiful. One more quick flurry from Dominic, but it's not enough as Seth lands a curb stomp and then another curb stomp and picks up the win over Dominic. As Seth leaves the ring, he goes over to Murphy. Looks like everything's good between them, but no, it's not really. As Seth throws Murphy into the barricade and into the steel steps. They are done. The greater good is now no longer great or good. Seth leaves, goes past Angie, gestures towards Aaliyah, and says, I hope you do better with that one. Obviously referencing how bad her son is, I guess. The Mysterio family head into the ring, but Aaliyah, on her way into the ring, stops to check on Murphy. What's that all about? Find out next time. And the Mysterios are gathered around Dominic following a gutsy performance. Giving this one an A, I thought once again, Dominik Mysterio just shining on WWE television. He's just had such a phenomenal summer with the company. For somebody so young into the business, he's absolutely killing it. And big love to Seth and Dom, who just have that beautiful chemistry at the moment. I feel like they're becoming the highlight of Monday Night Raw every single week. This has been quite a humdrum show so far, and Dom and Seth have managed to pull it out of the doldrums. Back to Raw Underground, where Dolph Ziggler is bouncing heads. Why can't Dolph wrestle as good as he can on Raw Underground in the Thunderdome? He'd be the champion in no time. Him and Riddick Moss get into it, but they are routinely battered by Braun Strowman making his debut on Raw Underground. Who wants a fight with Braun Strowman? Who's going to step up to get in there? Scouring the side of the ring, I see Sugar Dunkerton, aka Pineapple Pete, stood next to Shane McMahon. Look at you sneaking off AEW, you cheeky little tearaway. Get in there and fight Braun Strowman. Go on, Shug. Get in there, lad. Drew is having a chat backstage after this, intimating that he saved Keith Lee from a loss to Randy Orton the other week on Raw. Keith interrupts and he takes great exception to that idea. They have a friendly chat that then becomes a massive brawl, with Keith and Randy fighting each other out of that ring backstage and deeper into the locker room area, but the security guards break them up. A lot of tension between Drew and Keith tonight. Back to Raw Underground. Braun Strowman's just beating people up some more. Everyone's getting in the ring, getting knocked down by Braun. Riddick has another go. Just down he goes. Big love to Titus O'Neil, who does a double leg takedown on Braun Strowman. You lad, get in there. He ends up getting choked out and knocked down. But hey, who wants a fight with Braun? Let's come back later and find out. Kevin Owens faces Aleister Black in the Thunderdome. Next, we see Aleister Black jump Kevin Owens before the bell sounds. And Aleister Black's got some new gear. He's got long black trousers. Very nice. He takes his eye patch off as well, which is a shame. I like the eye patch look quite a lot. Throughout this match, Aleister Black wears down on the leg and the knee of Kevin Owens, and to the point where Kev can't even hit a dive outside the ring because it's hurting that bad. Black just focuses on that, wears it down. And after a submission, after several stomps to the leg and numerous creative ways to break a man's knee, Kevin Owens hits a desperation super kick into Aleister Black's face. He tries to rally, but his leg is out of commission. So Aleister Black looks like he's going to finish off Kevin Owens. But then the lights start flickering. This distracts Aleister Black long enough for Kevin Owens to drop a stunner and hit the 1, 2, 3. Quick win for Kev as he rolls out of the ring, clutching his knee. Giving this a B, I thought these guys worked really well together. Just what upset me was how last week they got beaten up by backstage on Raw Underground. They took a shoe-in by Dabba Kato. Didn't make any sense because they don't even reference that this week. Just the Raw Underground is a bit of a disconnect from everything, and we need to work on that. The fight between Drew and Keith lights up again backstage to the point where Adam Pearce steps between them and says that if they carry on like this, they'll go to bed with no supper. No, if they carry on like this, then the match is going to be cancelled for the main event. Adam Pearce is doing more and more on television every single week. I feel like we're gearing up for Adam Pearce to be a bigger part of WWE television. Maybe the leader of Retribution. Remember I said that. Riott Squad taking on Natalya and Lana next, with Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax on commentary for this one. Natalya and Lana jump the Riott Squad early to gain the advantage, but doesn't really count for much. A couple of minutes later, we see Lana eating a code breaker and a Riott kick for the 1, 2, 3. After the match, the WWE Women's Tag Champs get into the ring. Riott Squad get out of the ring. And poor Lana, she's left to take a Samoan drop through the announce table from Nia Jax. Oof. Giving this a C, it was fine. Wasn't much to the match at all. We're off to the Clash of Champions with Riott Squad and Jax and Baszler. So that should be fine. Our final trip to Raw Underground, and there's Braun Strowman still swatting away people like he's trying to get a discounted television on Black Friday. He's just been hilarious this week. Riddick Moss and Dolph Ziggler try for the 11th time to beat him up, and yeah, then no luck. And here finally comes Sugar Dunkerton. He gets in the ring and he says, "Hey, I'm Pineapple Pete and I'm going to knock your teeth out." No, that doesn't happen. That only happens in my head. Actually, Dabba Kato gets into the ring and Kato sizes up Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon steps between them and says, "Next week we'll have this next week. Good shout on actually building something for Raw Underground next week. You could have done Raw Underground this week in one segment. You could have done one segment for Raw Underground. You didn't need all three. And so we come to main event o'clock. It is Keith Lee versus Drew McIntyre. If Keith Lee wins, he becomes the alternate for Clash of Champions, should Randy be unable to perform. This one, a big beefy boy match with the beefy boys battering each other. Keith getting an early advantage, aiming at the jaw of Drew McIntyre throughout most of this one. Drew has a flurry near the end. He hits an impressive overhead belly-to-belly suplex onto Keith Lee. Hits a spine buster on Big Keith as well. Drew misses a Claymore. Keith goes for a spirit bomb and Drew gets out of it. Double down these guys go. And then here comes Retribution. All 4 million members of them. They surround the ring, jump in the ring, and they beat up Keith. And they beat up Drew. And they beat up Keith. And they beat up Drew. And they beat up Keith. And they beat up Drew. And they beat up Keith. And they beat up Drew. And then they stop. And I hurt my hand. And they beat up Keith. And they beat up Drew. And it goes on a bit. It goes on a bit. And we know why, because MVP has left the commentary position, legged it to the back, and is bringing out the Hurt Business. Here comes the cavalry, looking like the 4 horsemen from back in the day. That was a good look. These guys heading out to the ring. I feel like if there'd been a live crowd, they'd have got a pop. Out they come, they size up Retribution and they all get into it. Everybody fighting everybody. And then this gives Drew and Keith enough time to recover. They hit stereo somersault dives outside the ring onto Retribution and the Hurt Business as Raw goes off the air. Exciting way to end the night. As for the match, not so much. B- for the actual match tonight. I figured out what the issue is for me with Keith. And because a few weeks I thought something's not quite clicking, and it's not the theme music, it's not the attire, past all that. I'll tell you what it's like, right? It's like when you've been playing a role-playing game, right? You've been playing an RPG, Final Fantasy VII, for example, for the PlayStation 1. You're playing Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1. You've been playing it for months and months and months, and you've got Cloud and Tifa and Barrett all up to great levels. And then your memory card wipes, so you've got to start again. So all of a sudden, you've gone from having like Cloud and Barrett and Tifa all at great levels, all with big moves, summons, the lot, and you're suddenly back to basics again. That's what I feel has happened with Keith Lee on Monday Night Raw. We had the high-flying Keith Lee on NXT, Hurricane Ranas, moonsaults, the works, every match. It was just going over and above and beyond how these big guys move. And now on Raw, we've kind of just got sort of generic big man for the time being. And seeing him hit that dive to the outside of the ring was a little bit of the Keith that I remembered from NXT. It's like my memory card's been reset, but I'm finally working my way back to get Keith up to the level and the experience points that I want. Does that make sense? I think it does. Overall this week, Raw is a B-. It wasn't the greatest episode of Monday Night Raw, to be perfectly honest. There was a lot in there that dampened the show for me. I feel like the Raw Women's Championship match could have been greater. I feel like we could have had a little bit more when it comes to the main event. The steel cage match for me was the only part of Raw that truly came to life for me. That was a really solid match with these guys. For a show that claimed to be in my face, in putting you so close to my face, I kind of saw a lot of issues here. Maybe next time I'll be a bit further back from the face and I can enjoy it a bit more. Maybe. Stay safe. Love you, bye.